Hey, welcome, folks. It's KB's Unemployed Show. Day number 65 of unemployment. I had been calculating it wrong. It is my 65th day of unemployment. And my job search update is I don't have one. As each hour passes, I'm pretty much reserving myself to heading into retirement and then maybe go work at Home Depot or something like that and just say, I'll 15. That's about all I'm qualified for right now. But we're going to have fun today on the show. We have Erik Kjelland on, and he is the primary songwriter and lead singer of a band out of Madison called the Mascot Theory. It was become one of my favorite bands, and it's a great story behind how we discovered them. Drew and I both discovered this band. They're really good. If you don't know them already, they got a new album out, and it's called Cosmic Hit and Run. And what I like to do is bring to the show right now the lead singer and primary songwriter, Erik Kjelland. Erik, how you doing, man?
I'm doing great. How you doing, KB?
I am doing just fine. The story of how we crossed paths, I think, is such an interesting one because it was the first Summerfest after COVID. And if you remember, guys were playing in the afternoon. I want to say you were playing like over on the Generac stage, or might have still been the Harley stage at that time, right?
Yeah, it was probably like
And
noon slot.
yeah, in the afternoon slot. I know how that is. Believe me, I went from playing at night to playing in the afternoon, which is fine with me. I don't really mind anymore. But Drew and I are kicking around down at Summerfest as we always do. We're basically fixtures down there. And we were walking across the middle pathway and I heard you guys playing. And I grabbed Drew. I go, hey, let's go check these guys out. They sound really good. So we plopped down in front. Now, no bands during the day had anyone there.
Yeah.
They had to put it on. They had to get it out. Otherwise we would have all forgotten about it. And you're playing to, I don't know, 20, 25 people.
Yeah.
And Drew noticed that everyone was wearing Wisconsin jerseys. And so he was like, I wonder if they're from Madison. And I looked you guys up on Twitter. And what I did was I said, yet another band that great band that Drew and I stumbled onto. And then I added you in the tweet at the time. I didn't X you, I added you in the tweet. And sure enough, 2 hours after your show, all of a sudden I get an instant message back from you. And it's like, you guys were at the show? We love your show. And here you knew who we were. We didn't know who you were. But then we found out who you were. And I guess you could say a good friendship has been born since then.
Yeah, it was awesome. You're right. I think there was like 20 people. So I
Mhm.
remember seeing everybody that came in and sat down. I remember, it's a little farther away, but I kind of remember exactly where you were sitting. And you guys sat down. I don't think I knew exactly who you were at that time. My
Mhm.
vision probably wasn't super great then, but yeah, that was just a cool time. And I think you were like, these guys must be from somewhere else. And then you're like, oh, they're from Madison, which is we're
Yeah.
neighbors.
Yeah, it was. I mean, now being in Milwaukee, I was not all that familiar with the Madison music scene at all. In Milwaukee, the original music scene was great years ago, and it's starting to come back, right? But it went through, like a lot of cities do, a period of probably about 30 years when it was just nothing but cover bands. So I wasn't really used to hearing really good bands. And so hearing you guys, that was my immediate reaction is, well, everything around here is a cover band. It can't be that. They can't be from around here. But sure enough, I mean, you were. And as your bio says, you have soaring harmonies. And that's what attracted me to you. You've got some pretty solid harmonies in your band. You get some good singers.
Yeah, that's always like the thing that I enjoy as a songwriter is every one of my demos that I work up, just I put every single harmony I could possibly come up with and then send it to the band and be like, guys, somebody sing it. And luckily these guys are just they can pick it up. They got the ears to hear it. And that's always been something over the years we've really, really tried to just focus on is making sure that we've got those harmonies and the singing in there because that's just something I like.
Do you think that I've always felt this way that you can have a band? Obviously, if you're doing albums and you're getting some attention, you have to have musical talent, right? And you have to write songs that have a hook, and you do. Your songs are very hooky, but the harmony thing, I'm totally into harmonies. I was a choir kid in high school, and I
Yeah.
am of the belief that if you are in a band, you don't have to be like this incredibly like this prog rock band that is so musically different. If you have big sound harmonies. I think that's just impressive, and that hit people right in the face just
Yeah.
as well as anything else.
Yeah, once you especially, like, on a big chorus or something, then that just kicks in. We've got a few of those songs that are just I think one of the ones you mentioned, the Santa Ana Winds song that
Yeah.
actually we didn't write, but some friends of ours did, and we've been doing it for a long time, but that's one of those songs that it just hits in with the chorus, and everybody's singing, and it's just it's a you know, it's a power anthem, and a lot of that is because of those harmonies and obviously the big guitars as well, but yeah, I agree.
Which Santa Ana Winds we did together at Drew and KB's Guitars for Vets, and
That's
I've kinda
right.
slipped that yeah, I've kinda slipped that into our, my band's playlist. It pops up every once in a while, and, I do remember texting you after I listened to your album, and I said, "Man, this is a solid album. Santa Ana Winds has got a great hook," and you said I remember you going, "Ah, we didn't write that." It was tons of Bill, but you rearranged it.
Yeah,
And I like
yeah.
the version that you guys do better than theirs. I think yeah, I mean, it's a different style of band, but theirs is a little more stripped down, a little more garage rock. Yours is a
Yeah.
little more polished.
Yeah, and unfortunately, they actually don't play anymore. I don't think they've played as a band together for, like, 5, 6 years probably, maybe even before COVID when they kinda stopped playing, so we're the only band playing it right now as far as I know, and actually on our version on the album, we actually had one of the songwriters of the band, he played pedal steel on our
Oh,
version too. I got to know him through that, just, I knew that I met a bunch of the guys in the band down in Nashville, and so got to know them pretty well, and then I was just like, "Hey, we're actually doing a version of your song on this album, would you wanna do some pedal steel on here?" And he was all for it, so it was awesome to get them involved.
and did he say how much are you paying in rights fees? How much are we getting for you guys to do it?
I think I actually led with, I am paying all the rights that are needed for this. I think on the Harry Fox agency or whatever
Uh-huh.
whatever it is right now, you gotta go on and pay, like, we're gonna have, let's see, 1,000 CDs pressed up, so that's like $100 or whatever it ends up being. They have some formula thing. So
There you
we
go.
made the payment for sure, and I even paid him to do the pedal steel as well. They deserve it.
Recording in Nashville is pretty wild, isn't it? Man, you got so much talent down there. You could just
Yeah.
throw a rock and hit a touring musician. Just unbelievable.
Yeah, and
And,
studios everywhere.
oh, everywhere there are studios. But the sad thing about Nashville, and I don't know how long you've been going down there, but I noticed it. I used to go down there in the early 2000s, and then probably about 8 or 9 years ago, I went back, and I was so I guess for lack of a better term, disted by the city because South Broadway, I just refer to it now as Daytona with a belt buckle.
It's all kinds of bachelorette parties all over the place,
Bachelorette
and
parties, cover bands, and
yeah.
pedal taverns.
Yeah, and I
Ye
I remember the first time I went down there, which would have been around probably 2011, 2012, something like that, when we just before we started recording our album down there, and I was so excited in Broadway to be to s you know, walk down the street and you look inside these windows before you even go in, and there's just drummers in all these windows and all these places, and you're like, "This is amazing. This is my town. This is so great." And then you walk in and you hear Def Leppard, and then you go to the next one and it's Def Leppard, and you're like, "Oh, I thought we were gonna hear like a bunch of singer-songwriters," and which they have in other places, but not so much Broadway. And
They all moved they all moved out because,
yeah,
when I get down there and I saw this, because it was probably 10 years since I had been down there, and it was just jaw-dropping. Friends in Low Places, the opening notes of Friends in Low Places is now like the, country equivalent of Don't Stop Believing for a church festival band, right? As soon as you hear it, everyone goes crazy. But I got down there, and all I did was I just texted my buddy, he's a bass player, and I just said, "What the F happened to your city?" And he goes he goes, "Dude, when I moved here, there was probably 4,000 songwriters trying to make it." And he said, "Maybe there's 400 now." Yeah. I said, "Well, where are the listening rooms?" He goes, "Oh, they're way out." Okay, because like
yep,
even the Bluebird Cafe has become
yeah,
touristy,
yeah.
and, it's really
Yeah,
unfortunate.
I went there when we got to town and a little bit later, and I was like, "This is so great. We got into the Bluebird. It's gonna be amazing." And then, like, a couple of the songwriters that were in there, I was like, "Not not great. These songs are not really good at all." No, and I don't wanna rip on anybody, but it's not what I was expecting. And I think they were out of town, and I don't know exactly where they put the bill together, but I was very, taken by that, and actually probably inspired, like, I can do this."
Yeah, we can do this better. So, you mentioned, when you're songwriting and you kinda said you have the songs and you send them to the band, are you the primary songwriter of everything and you're going to be writing everything and give it to them and that's what ends up there? Or okay, so Corey or the other guys don't really ever songwrite or bring you stuff or anything like that?
No, what happens is I go ahead and write all the songs. I get them kind of like demoed up, and early in the band it was real rough, just me and an acoustic guitar, and then I would send it to the band, and then we'd kind of work up the version of the song. So everybody's writing their own parts for the most part. Now, with technology and everything and time, because all of us have kids and all of us have jobs and things going on, it just kind of works out that now I can just kind of do these full on demos that have drums, bass, guitars. Now I can't play like Swadley at all on guitar. So,
Mhm.
but I'm
Well,
putting in
Corey's a
some
monster.
ideas. Yeah. So I'm putting in some ideas for things and then send it to the band. And it kind of just makes it quicker for us to get to that next step to then go and get a version of it on our own. Everybody worked up their stuff. And then, it's a great starting off point for everybody.
So you said back in 2012, when did the band start? When did you first come together?
I believe 2011 was when we first started, and it was like this accidental thing. I had actually retired, quotes, from playing live because I was playing in a bar band, and then I had kids, and it
Mhm.
was not working so great to get home at post bar time and then have to get up a few hours later to be with the kids, babies. And so that kind of put an end to that playing. And then I kind of decided, well, I'm going to start doing the coffee shop thing because I really want to play. And so I did some solo albums, but just really just playing in little bitty coffee shops and made sure that I was home by 10 o'clock. That worked out pretty well. And then it sort of accidentally happened to where my old band, which Nick Fry, bass player with the Mascot Theory, he and I had a band that he was in this bar band. So we had this band, but he had another band down in kind of the Freeport, Illinois area. And I had known that they were playing some shows, and I was doing this duo thing at the coffee shop, and my partner wasn't able to make it. And I'm like, hey, I think we had done a show together. We played a couple songs and harmonized on each other's songs. And I'm like, can you bring your guys up if you guys want to play? Let's just sit and do this show, and just all acoustic. Paul, our drummer, was on cajon drums, so it was pretty stripped down. And just like that very first time we played together, it was like, and it was the harmonies. It was kind of the thing that locked me in, because you're not playing with full on electric stuff or full on drum kits and anthem stuff. It's like real stripped. And so that was our first shot at playing. And at that time, I'm like, I guess I need to throw a name on this. So I went to this list of names that I had sitting around from a friend of mine who were just always like, hey, that sounds like a band name. Throw it on a list. And I grabbed the Mascot Theory, threw it on it, not really expecting that it was going to go any farther than maybe a couple little shows like that. And then eventually I said, hey, we've been playing a few shows. I've got a bunch of originals that I don't really know what to do with. Should we give it a shot? And then we went and recorded our first album and released that in 2012.
So what is the genesis of the Mascot Theory? Because it seems really random, but how did you come up with that?
So where I worked, we had the NCAA brackets, the big tournaments
Sure.
in March Madness, and we had of course, had an office pool, and my buddy would always pick his based off of which mascot would win in a fight, and it was
Ah,
ridiculous. And he never won, but it was hilarious. His donation of money was always appreciated. But we always thought that was a funny name. We call it the Mascot Theory. Actually, it was Wailing Tom and the Mascot Theory when we first wrote it down, just because we thought it'd be funny to put a name on it. And Tom was a chicken for some reason. So our mascot was actually a chicken when we first started the band, just as a little logo thing. So that's where it started. It's all from that. And we dropped the Wailing Tom part.
mhm. Yeah, because it's a really it's a great and an interesting band name. Talking about writing and doing the parts and throwing it over, because I'm gonna get back to the harmonies thing. As you're writing harmonies, and there are different approaches. I can't read a note of music to save my life. I can only hear what I hear, right? And you said when you're writing harmonies, are you doing the harmony on a piano? Are you doing it on a guitar? Because the only
So
way I know how to do harmonies is just to sing and
that's
sing.
it.
I just sing into a recorder, then I listen to it. It's like, okay, that sucks. I'll try this until something clicks.
Yeah, that's
Is
me.
that you?
I don't write anything out. I don't write notes or anything. I played in band in high school. I played trumpet, so I could read charts back then, and that was the extent of it. Totally lost all of that power and knowledge of that. Now I just kind of write what I hear, just like you. When I'm I'll put down my main stuff, and then I'll be like, okay, if I want harmonies, where do I want them? And then just start laying them down. And there's some obvious places typically if you're doing kind of a standard normal ish chord where you're like, okay, here's probably where we're going to go. You got the third, fifth, kind of the normal things. But I don't really think about any of that. I'm just like, what do I want to hear? And I'm a huge fan of the Beatles. And that was where I think I first was like, harmonies. That's the thing. And the type of harmonies where it doesn't even matter who is singing the lead. It could be John, it
Mhm.
could be Paul. It doesn't matter. It's just they're both singing at the same time. And that was really what the Mascot theory, when we first started on some of our songs, I was like, and on our albums, you'll hear the backup vocals going to be just as loud as mine on those first one or two albums, because that was kind of the thing. We're like, I don't know whose is the main one. I mean, I'm the lead singer, but as far as the album version, I wanted them both to be really prominent. Nowadays, it's not so much that way, but it does give me that mindset of just, okay, if I put on other harmonies on here, what do I put down? And sometimes I find that I'll write a song because when you're playing, just sitting there and you're writing and you're throwing it into a computer and you're demoing it, that's one way. You're not really performing it with the band yet. So sometimes when you get with the full band and you're starting to sing it for the first time in the practice space here, and you realize, oh, that's actually lower than I planned it being. I'd rather that I'd be able to sing it higher to be more powerful, or maybe it's too high and I need to sing the lower part. So sometimes I will kind of ditch what my other one was, let somebody else sing that one, and change it to a different one to be the main vocal on it. Yeah.
So it's more like when you talk about the lead singer and the harmonies being at the same volume level, it's Beatles, but it's also Simon and Garfunkel, Everly
Sure.
Brothers,
Yep.
things like that. Now, for harmonies, or I'm just talking about music in general. We all grew up listening to songs, and now that you've become more musically inclined and you're writing on your own and recording on your own, have you ever gone back and rediscovered a song that you used to listen to that changed completely because now you know music?
I mean, yeah, I think a lot of that early I would listen to a lot of like pop music, I think. Before I got to the Beatles anthology in the 90s and really started kind of going down that classic
Mm.
rock kind of mode. Before that, I really just listened to a lot of pop music, whatever was on the radio. Never even thinking of and I didn't want to start playing music until that Beatles anthologies. I didn't want to start writing until then. So I had no ideas before that. It was just listening to stuff. So a lot of that pop music from those, you know, 90s, 80s, 90s, all of that stuff was never in my mind as like, how are they doing this? It was just, "Oh, that's a cool song. Nirvana, that's kind of cool. Pearl Jam, that's kind of cool." But also like the stuff on the pop radio, Boys to Men,
Mhm.
Mariah
Sure.
Carey. Not gonna lie, I love that stuff back in the day. And it was those harmonies again with Boys to Men, just like that just always was pleasing to my ear. Now when I hear some of those songs, every now and then I'll be like, interesting. Or I'll go actually analyze it and be like, that's two chords or that's three chords. That's a super simple song. Or if we try to actually do a cover version of something, which is super rare, but every now and then we'll try it. And I'll be like, that is a way harder song than I thought it was. Harder
Mhm.
to sing, harder to play. So yeah, it's kind of interesting to go back and check that stuff out.
There's been a couple of songs that exploded in my head that I listened to, and maybe maybe you can go back and listen to them because when I heard them again, and you hear it with a different ear, one of those was, and other bands too that I have developed an unbelievable respect for. One of those is Delta Dawn, Helen Reddy's version of Delta Dawn. If you go
Okay.
back and listen to it, right? It was kind of like this poppy Delta Dawn, what's that flower you've got on? And it seems very innocuous at first. But with it, now that my ear has gotten better and I went back and listened to it, my mind was completely blown by listening to it because all of the harmonies in the back that you don't necessarily hear are all gospel, right? And then there's, a Wurlitzer and all these other instrumentation underneath it. And then, of
Yeah.
course, the key change. And the other thing that I didn't really understand was what's all the to do about pet sounds. And that's the greatest album ever. And okay, it wasn't like Pet Sounds was not like their beach, driving up and down the California coast stuff. I mean, it was a little bit different. And you go back and listen to that, and I don't know if you have listened to it recently, but it dawned on me in listening to it that what Brian Wilson was doing was he was not writing harmonies. He was taking human voices and writing a symphony.
Yeah.
So when you listen to it, one guy's harmony maybe that's going to be like the flute or the trumpet. Another guy's harmony is going to be
Yeah.
like the bass or
Yeah. Their
two.
sounds. They're
There's
not
yeah,
very
and that's all it is.
necessarily.
It's like, and all of a sudden you went, oh well, no shit. Well, no wonder this thing is just an amazing album, and the trained ear
Yeah.
has been able to do that. Uh,
Yeah,
so you
actually,
left.
I literally listened to that album a year ago. A year, probably it was probably in December last 2 years ago,
Mhm,
because as you mentioned in the lead up, we had the new album that just dropped back in October, and in preparation for that, we knew this album was a little bit different, the way we were going to approach it, and I literally did go in and start listening to pet sounds, just like put the headphones on, turn all the lights off, and just listen to it, and kind of not so much analyze it, like how did they do this, what are they doing here, but really just like the concept of that album and how he did the production of it and the sounds. I really, really was interested in all those different sounds and how did he work those in to the songs and still just make, incredible songs. So
mhm.
that's funny you brought that up because that was a big part of this new album.
So, well, in the last 2 years, 2 albums, so these came pretty quick back to back, right? You had Every Sign of Life in 2024 and then Cosmic Hit and Run, and
Yeah.
that's something to be able to put 2 out back to back, but Cosmic Hit and Run is kinda written from a perspective you were going through a tough time at that point, and,
Yeah.
was that the inspiration for the songs in this album?
Yeah. So the album that came out before this, Every Sign of Life, we recorded down in Texas. It was kind of like our dream recording. We actually recorded it back in 2022. So to us, it had been around for a long time. We had kind of shopped it around, seeing if we could get a record deal. Spoiler, that didn't happen. And there's
Mhm.
not a lot out there in the music industry right now. But we got the album in the can, we shopped it around. So there was a big gap between recording it and releasing it. So finally we got to the point where we released it on our own in 2024. But I'm still writing songs. Like, I'm still working on lots of. We had a lot of demos of songs that we were working on. We had a whole other album that we were ready to go do, and could have done it early last year. And we talked about it like, okay, I think this is going to be the next album. But it got to the point where I started remembering that I had songs that I had pieces of songs and a couple full songs that I had written all the lyrics for when my dad was unfortunately passed away in 2020. Right, obviously in the middle of COVID. He came down with pancreatitis. He was in the hospital for like 2 years, and it finally took him out at the end of 2020 in December. And so I was writing a lot of lyrics about that, very, very, very personal things. And kinda shelved it and, did some demos on some of the songs, but the rest of the lyrics, I kinda kept it there. When it came time early last year to start thinking about this next album that we were gonna do, I thought, "I think this is the timing for it. I think I wanna make an album that's a concept album that's just all of this stuff that I've been kinda delayed processing, the death and grief and all that stuff, and I felt like I really wanted to do this, so we put the other one aside for now, which it'll probably worked on at some point in the future here, probably sooner than later, and decided this was the project. So Cosmic Hit and Run is what we were going to do. It was going to be all these songs that I had either started writing years ago and some of the songs that I just kind of worked on throughout the summer. It was going to be like every song tied into each other. It was going to be very, very focused on like a side A and a side B on a vinyl. Like we really wanted
Mhm.
it to be that obvious flip of an album. So it was designed for vinyl. Every song on that side A goes into each other with different sounds and different landscapes, and that was really the whole point of it. And it already meant a lot to me just lyrically and musically. And as we just sort of got to a point where we were going to start recording it. We did some sessions. We were going to do this all on our own. We had literally just went in one of the biggest studios of the world to do Every Sign of Life album. And this was like the total opposite. We're like, all right, we're going back to the old days when we just were like, let's do it in our basements. But now let's do it in our basements, and we've got much better gear than we used to have, and digital stuff is way better, computers are way better, so this is going to be like infinitely better than what the old ones we used to do. So we're like, let's just try it. And this was the kind of album we thought would be worth doing it for, because it was just, there was not going to be a timeline, we are just going to work on it. we do this session where we get some drums and bass recorded, and it went really well. But for that month and a half leading up to that, I had these horrible headaches that just kind of popped up and just got worse and worse and worse. And even in that session, as I was listening on headphones, it was just there was a picture of me with just like this because I could barely take it being in that room with just the loud noise and everything. But we got it done. And then probably 2 weeks after that, I had an episode where I had to go in and get an MRI done because they were concerned that maybe I'd had a stroke. And they did an MRI and they found this arteriovenous fistula right in my brain, right in the center of my brain, that basically is a time bomb that would just go off at any second. And that's it, Eric. I'll see you later. So super scary time when they found that thing
Ooh.
because we just didn't know. We also didn't know if the headaches had anything to do with that. I mean, it seems obvious. It's up there. It's in your head. But at the time, it was like, we can't deal with any of your symptoms and stuff. We got to fix that because at any second it can go. And so
Mhm.
I'm like, okay, let's get in and do it. Well, then I had to wait for 3 months because that was the waiting list. So that was
Wow.
great. So they're like, you need to sit on a couch, do absolutely nothing, no major sudden movements, just do nothing. During that do nothing time, I was either feeling absolutely horrible with these headaches and facial pain and like teeth hurting and like pressure all over the place and tons of other horrible symptoms. That was the bad days. On the good days, I worked on the album. I was like, I have nothing else to do right now. I'm going to be working on this album. So a lot of the sounds and stuff on the album were me trying to process the all the lyrics, that I was put into these songs about my dad passing away. But now I'm going through a similar thing where I'm about to go through a huge operation at some point. I'm going through this pain and everything, but I'm going to try to channel that into this album in all the sounds in the album. So it actually gave another focus to the album, like from
Mm.
a sonic standpoint. And so that's what I did. And then my goal was wrap up everything, send all the files over to our guy to get mixing literally, the week before I went in to get my surgery last May, which was a routine surgery for a non-routine thing. To have this ATF in your brain is like super rare. A lot of people get them in their like legs and arms and stuff.
Oh,
And
really?
it's an artery and a vein that are kind of connected with little tributaries. So you have pressurized blood going into a non-pressurized, artery, vein, whatever one's the non-pressurized one, and it can just pop, So and it had created this pool of blood in there, so it was really, really bad. So I
Wow.
went in and I got the files done, and I'm like, that's all I needed. And any kind of brain surgery is super like I just didn't know what the outcome was going to be after the surgery. I wanted this thing done, and I got the first mix back. And the night of my surgery, after came out of surgery, I got to listen to the verse mix for the first time, and it was incredible. Like it
Mhm.
was in a weird, sad, happy, super painful because I woke up in more pain than I had ever been in my life, hoping I'd wake up and oop, all that was gone, but it wasn't. But they did the fix, so that was the relief. That worked. But that night I just listened to the album for the first time and I was in a hospital bed, the same hospital I watched my dad suffer in for 2 years, and it was just a lot. So this album has definitely been way more emotional than any other album I've ever worked on.
When, you're drawing on your personal experiences for lyrics, is there anything that's sitting in a shelf in a lyric book somewhere that's just too personal that you're like, "Now I can't put music behind it. I can't let that out. That's just gotta stay there."
That's kinda what this album was. I didn't think I was gonna write because a lot of times when I write songs, I wanna make them generic is not the word, approachable, I guess is the right word. I want people to be able to get into the lyrics and put their own meaning onto it, not the type who likes to, like, talk about the songs that I've just written and tell you what they're about. I'd rather someone else figure out what it means to them. I mean, sometimes I may not know what it's about 100%. So I'm very shy in that way too. Like I keep those personal feelings down. I have definitely written songs. Our Nashville album in 2014 was a really tricky time when we were deciding if we were going to move to Nashville or not, and there was some tough times there with the family. And so there's sometimes that there are songs with pretty intense lyrics, but I disguise them really well, I think, so that people don't necessarily know what. I'll put the toe tapper songs on it, right? So and then you just
Right.
don't really notice what we're singing about. But
Yeah.
that was the opposite with this album. It was like, I'm just gonna lean in and I'm gonna tell you about very specifically what happened to my dad and where I'm feeling, where I am not sure if I grieved in the right way or have at all yet. So this was kind of our and why we decided to do the album on our own. We just thought this will just be our own kind of thing, and we hope people like it. And then fast forward to October when we released it, we decided for the first time we're just going to play the album as it is all the way through with all the weird sounds that are on it. We're going to have all of those triggered. We're not going to stop in between songs. We're not going to talk to anybody. It's just going to be start to finish. And we did two album release shows, one in Madison and one up in Appleton. And the one up in Appleton was first, and everything went off without a hitch. All the sounds cued, the crowd was great. We played really great. It was really just a perfect night. 2 days later, we get to Madison, and I'm still experiencing these headaches that I was having before. And I just felt the worst I had felt in a long time the morning of this show. And we did sound check, and everything just hurt so much. And I'm like, how am I gonna play? And then I don't want to let people down that are buying tickets to
Right.
go to the show. But I guess there was this adrenaline that just sort of kicked in, and it just sort of worked. And I think I got more emotional publicly than I've ever gotten in my entire life at the end of that show. It was a beautiful night. I remember driving home afterwards and just being all the emotions that I've ever had, just boom. It was again, super thrilled, super happy with how it went, super sad because of the lyrics and my dad and all of that, and just disappointed that things didn't go, that I didn't feel as well as I wanted to feel. It was just all these weird emotions. That's music. That's pretty amazing, I think, to have that kind of an outlet to experience that. And I think people are listening to it and hearing some of that as well, and maybe trying to put themselves in some of that grieving process a little bit.
I know you guys are an indie band. Is the era of going after a big record company, is that gone? Do you think? Is that, everyone wanted to go out and get a record deal, but now you can cut an album in your basement. The people that are hitting on TikTok. You get something on TikTok and look out, right?
Yeah.
And do you think that going after a record deal is really that big of a deal anymore? Or now are you more attached to the music personally instead of having to please an A&R guy?
I mean, we haven't been offered a record deal in our lifetime, so I guess I don't 100% know what that feeling is like to know you have to write an album
Like getting
and have an
screwed?
A&R and have an A&R. Well, yeah, right. And have an A&R guy come back at you and say, "Hey, we don't hear the hit, we don't hear the single." I've never had that. We definitely chased that, with this Every Sign of Life album, trying to see with different connections that we had of people that were in the industry, but we didn't have the TikTok thing going. We didn't have all of those moments that they really look for now. Even though everybody really loved the album that we were sending them, they're like, "This is great." But a lot of people make really great albums, and it's not just that anymore. A lot of the feedback was this would have been an amazing album back in the '70s, like when there was music in the industry and people took chances on stuff. It's corporate, like radio, like
Yeah.
everything. It's a bottom line. We need to make a certain amount of money for our investors. And if we see somebody on TikTok that just got 1 billion views, we're going to go give them a record deal, even though they've sang half of a song and never performed it live. And, if that works for them, I guess that's their thing. But there's still a lot of bands out there doing their thing. It is much easier to make an album on your own now, but that also means everybody can make an album on their own now. So you can't, we don't, at this point, we're getting up there, KB, in years. We're not a
Tell me
young
about it.
band anymore, so it's not really something we're chasing right now. Which is why we made this album the way we did. We're just we're doing it on our own, and see if we could do a blueprint here for how we could do maybe albums from now on, where we can do a lot more of them. Because I write a lot, and it kind of drives the band nuts sometimes when I'm like, guys, I've got 4 more demos that I'd love to start working on, but if we have to pay the studio
Eric,
time and do
pump
all
the
that stuff.
brakes. Pump the
Yeah.
brakes. We have to go on vacation. I can't get to these. Um, it is interesting. The recording process now is so much different. There is a woman in Milwaukee who I play with. She was on Atlantic, had a big, big solo album. She still may be the number one played. Well, it doesn't even exist anymore, VH1, I don't think, but she was the number one played artist on VH1. And
Wow.
she did an album a couple years ago. And she got in a jam and she sent me 2 songs and she said, "Can you write harmonies for these?" So, I did. I put these harmonies in, these harmony parts, and then one day she calls me up and the guy who was gonna sing had to bail on the session, and she goes, "Do you wanna sing these?" And I'm like, "Yeah." She goes, well, just come over. So I go over. She's in her basement in a closet with blankets hanging around the closet. That's where I went in and sang the parts. Her producer is in France. Her drummer and bass player were in Nashville. The producer and the guitar player were in France. Drummer and bass player was a drummer was in Atlanta. Bass player was in Nashville. Keyboard player was in L.A. And they never saw each other ever. And the whole
Yeah.
album came together, and they never saw each other. And the one thing that I love is that I wrote those 2 songs, or I wrote the harmonies for those 2 songs. They're on the album, and now I can tell everyone that I am on an album with Gary Talent of the E Street Band.
Way to go.
Never met him, don't have any idea, but that's how
Practically best friends now.
yeah, but that's how the stuff comes together. Now, are you your own muse, or just that you could just go right, right, right? I can't. I need inspiration. And maybe I don't have an inspiring life.
I think I've always been pretty prolific with just like quantity of coming up with ideas, and it could be just scraps of things on my phone. It's hard to see, but like up around there, I've got all these album covers,
Mhm.
and I think I've done probably 30 albums. You know, with the different bands I started with. The Mascot's got probably 6 or 7 of them now.
Really?
I mean, yeah, I mean, it's just never. I've always wanted to write, and that's my passion. When I tried to retire from playing back in the right before the coffee house and right before the Mascot theory, I was miserable because I wasn't writing anymore, and I was like, this is just definitely something I just need to do. And so a lot of times it's, I've got my phone on me all the time, and that's like one of the best devices I have now for songwriting, because you can capture anything at any moment for the most part. If you duck into a corner, you get a little melody in your head in the shower or somewhere else in the car, and you can pop it down, or you get a quick guitar idea. I've got my laptop here set up. I can just grab my guitar, throw it, even that into my phone. Like, it's just so much quicker to get these scraps done. And then what happens is I'll go in at some point when I'm, I guess, feeling, not even just feeling inspired, but have the time to do it. I'll just sit down and listen to some of those scraps, or something else will pop in my head, and I'll jump right to make a demo of it. If I have an idea for a drum beat, I'm like, shoot, I got to get that down. But it's so much faster to make, for me to make those demos now, to start that process, just boom, right into it. I'll just do it. And I'll have scraps of songs that are kind of fully fleshed out songs, but maybe the lyrics aren't quite right yet, or the lyrics are great, but I don't have a chorus for it yet, or something. I've got pieces of that in my phone that I listen to all the time. And so it's part of just who I am. And I think it is, yeah, I'd say I amuse. I guess I amuse myself.
Mhm.
I take what I see around or what I hear, and just kind of like jot it down just in case. And I just tend to be able to finish stuff. And I think that's a big thing for me, is like when I have something that I've started, I want to finish it, and I don't like to let it sit. Now, there's definitely times where I'll sit down and just nothing. Like, I got nothing today. But, maybe I can throw a weird drum beat into here, and that'll trigger something, or maybe it won't. But I think just the discipline of trying to get stuff finished, I think, is a big part of it.
Do you write every day? Do you try and write something every day?
No, I wish I did. I have too much going on, but a lot of the stuff that I do as well, like, that's music adjacent, is like music videos. Like, that's been a big thing. Once I had a taste of a music video, the video portion of taking one of our songs and then realizing it's got legs in a different way, where you can add a visual element to it. Back when we did, I think in 2013 or 14 or 15, something like that, we did
Mhm.
this music video, and I was like, has my kids in it. I love the fact that existed. And so I didn't know how to do them, but I then learned the process of it. I'm a graphic designer as well. So I've got a lot of that software already. So I just kind of slowly started figuring out how to make videos, and then direct them and produce them. And so with all these albums that I do, I may not be writing right now, but I've got 15 ideas for music videos, of which 2 might actually happen. So it's a lot of creativity. I always said I had a restless mind. I might not be writing songs, but I'm definitely working on, most of the time, some ideas for creativity and how to get that stuff out.
As in, so you're a graphic designer, you've got a family. The other guys in the band have families. What about touring? Do you go out and tour? Do you cherry pick dates? Is it more exciting for you to be in the studio or on stage?
Both. I love them equally. I see them both as a way to, when you make an album, you're just so intense. At least I am. When I'm listening to it, I'm listening to each new version. I'm listening to, oh, we just added a bass part to this one. Now I'm going to listen to that song 1,000 times and see how it fits. And I love that. But then it gets to that point where you're like, like with this new album, like, shoot, we actually haven't played any of these songs ever live for the first time. So we should probably start playing them. So getting in the studio here with the guys, even in the practice room, is amazing. It's that taking something that we recorded and created, but haven't really played it live and figuring out how to do that. And then to get to the stage, I mean, all of those steps,
Mm.
every one of them I love almost equally, where I wouldn't give any of them up. I'm never going to stop. I hope I never stop recording and writing. And I hope I never have to stop playing as well. I think it's just so much fun and so fulfilling to see all of these steps that we kind of then put on a repeat and rinse and repeat kind of cycle where we can do it again. And technology allows us to do that. We don't really tour like extensively at all. It's weekend warrior type stuff. And it's usually just around Wisconsin or maybe dip into Illinois or Minnesota every now and then. But it's really just Wisconsin stuff. And a lot of it's our events that we put on, like my Flannel Fest event and charity things.
I was just going to ask you about that. Flannel Fest is an event you've been doing for several years, and it was just held in November, correct?
Yep. Yep.
The most recent one. Explain to the viewers here, what is Flannel Fest about? Because I think it is such an incredible charity, but it's also, if you look at the past month here in Wisconsin, it is of vital importance.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's probably been now, this will be our 12th year, I think, coming up, I believe. So
Mhm.
let's say 12 years ago, my friend and I, my friend Beth Killy and I, we both had bands, the Mascot Theory and Beth Killy Band. We wanted an excuse to have an event to put our bands on the same stage. And we're like, let's just come up with some new festival thing and let's do a charity aspect of it. And so we kind of went and found the Keep Wisconsin Warm Cool Fund. Just we thought this is just like a no-brainer. You're going into it's always in November, so you're about to go into winter time. It's just we had some other organizations that we looked into, but Keep Wisconsin Warm Cool Fund, they wanted to be at the event. They wanted to have a table there. They wanted to help out and volunteer. And to us, that was like amazing. Like we're not just going to write a check at the end of the night and anonymously send it out and maybe get a thank you, but that's it. Like they're going to be there. They're going to be involved, and we love that. And so I've actually gotten to be very, very close with all of those folks over there. I work with them a lot, even on the graphic design side. I work with them now too on a lot of things. And we curate other events throughout the year, vet aid concerts to help with veterans, just all kinds of things. So that's a big passion of mine too. That again, it's music related, but it's a charity aspect. And so Flannel Fest was like the thing that was just the perfect kind of kickoff for that. And we've been doing it now for so long. And to lead back to your thing that we'll maybe talk about is favorite times on stage, favorite bands to open for.
Yeah,
This event has been my way of trying to book those bands so that I can then play in front of some of my favorite bands.
because you just had last one was Rhett Miller, right? The old 97s?
That was 2 years ago. We had
2
Old
years ago.
97s and Blitzen Trapper that year. Blitzen Trapper being one of my all-time favorite bands, and Old 97s, I mean, incredible. Last year was the record company.
Right.
Not,
Okay.
Milwaukee grown Chris Voss, but again, like just being able to share the stage and not gigantic stage, not like, hey, we're on Summerfest and then 5 hours later is whoever, Lemonheads or whoever. This is like directly we're on this smaller relative stage and we get to actually talk to them backstage. It's obviously fun to play on a stage in front of the crowd. It's equally as fun to be able to talk to these guys because spoiler, they're all actually just human beings. I didn't really realize that as growing up as a fan of all these artists. You think they're high above, but honestly, when you run into some amazing people like Rhett Miller, like they're really good dudes. Oh, and they also happen to be ridiculously talented too.
Right. I have a similar, I've always wanted to do that as well and have a similar story. This goes back to the early 2000s. And an intern played for me a song on, if you could, on LimeWire. If you remember LimeWire, right? The one that you could get music from everybody, and also you could get viruses on your computer
Yep.
quite easily. And it was Pat McGee band. And the first time I heard this song, and he's from Virginia, out in Virginia. He lives in Rhode Island now. First time I heard the song, I was hooked. And I did this over the course of about 4 or 5 years. I manifested my way into getting him at Shank Hall and opening for him and ending up being, really, really good friends.
Awesome.
And that's, that is a lot of fun to do that. And there are different levels of playing with people. I've had some hell gigs, and I'm sure you have.
Of course.
The one, if I can humor you one with one,
Let's do it. Do it.
the
Bring it.
one that I played at Shank Hall an awful lot back in the 2000s, and the one that was the freakiest one. Now I played there with Leif Garrett. I played there with Mike Tramp of White Lion, and believe me, the White Lion stuff is not anything like what I was doing. I mean, total disconnect. But I get booked to play with Frank Marino and Mahogany Rush. And
Okay.
I saw the people come in and I went, there's no effing way I'm going out. I am not going out on that stage and doing my little, my little folk songs in front of a Frank Marino crowd. And backstage, I'm like, dude, I can't go out there. And he looks at me and he goes, hey, anyone gives you a hard time, just say Frank wants you out there. Like, there we go. There, yeah,
Before you go
Frank
out there.
wants you out there. So yeah, I was gonna ask you about what are some of the store or the bands that you played for? I have 5 favorite that I'm gonna share with you. Not bands that one of them I've gotten to know pretty well, but what are some of the shows or the bands that you played with that maybe you had to pinch yourself, you couldn't believe you were playing with them, or it was just a great event or something that you absolutely you couldn't believe you were doing it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the Flannel Fest events the last few years, we had the Jayhawks, Old 97, Blitzen Trapper, and then the record company. I mean, that was a stretch that was just, I mean, and I'm not going to say who, but I think we just booked one of my all time favorite bands to play the next Flannel Fest. I think I've got that one lined up. So that will be on the top of my list. I can't say
Beautiful.
who because we don't have the contracts yet, but I
Mhm.
think it's going to happen. But so those are like just probably the tops. But then like we played with the Bodines a few times, and solid fun time with those guys. Kurt and his band members are even cooler, like really really nice guys, super talented guys. We've sold more merch at any other show at Bodine shows for some reason, which is
Mhm.
awesome. So I really love those. Kurt will do more. You got him. And then I think like we played with America, which was pretty
Ah,
cool.
where did you play with
Oh,
them?
Crystal Grand up in the
One of the guys lives up in Land O'Lakes. He's got a summer
oh,
place up there. The guy that doesn't have
that's
the glasses, it's the other.
well, that was fun just because it was, the songs. You start hearing some of these songs but I just now it just made me think of Beth and I actually played we have a little side project called Kerosene Kites. We usually just play around Christmas time, but they asked us to play up at this I guess it's the Legacy Theater, or I don't know what to call it now, but a smaller like a dinner place. We actually played with the Bonings up there at one point too, but Air Supply played and we got to open for them. And those are probably one of those like top shows where I'm like, I didn't expect to have as great of a time listening to them as I thought I would. Cause I mean, it's some of those 90s, 80s songs as well that are just like, classic making love out of nothing at all. And like certain songs like that, that you're just like, they're kind of they're corny.
Cool
They're corny.
change. Time for
They're
a cool
corny. Yeah, but, like, being in the room when they were playing and their band was way more incredible than I expected them and
Mhm.
rocking, like, they rocked, and the 2 dudes that are in the band, they can sing, they're really high singers, and they were just usually folks that old are not hitting those notes anymore. I know Paul McCartney's not hitting as many notes as he used to, although he
Laborio
did for a
Jr.
long
is
time.
for him. You ever notice
Yeah,
if you
yeah,
watch McCartney, Abe is back there singing along with him
yep.
sometimes.
Yep. But that was probably the show that I was just like I remember just sitting and watching and it was just like hit after hit after hit. And I was just like, Without You, that was another song. I think Mariah Carey made that huge. I didn't even realize that they did that song or wrote it. So and to all on top of that, talking to them after the show, they're just the nicest guys I've ever met backstage. And so, that helps, that makes the experience of playing. And again, I don't even remember what we played. It was fun to play there too, but it was more listening to them and then get to talk. So
Yeah.
that was fun.
There, uh, I'll give you some of the ones that my
Yes.
favorites, my top 5 in a minute, but I got a good Bodine story for you. Mary Carlson, who was a woman that I played with, she and I went out and did some duo shows when she was touring, and she had toured with Dylan and, a bunch of major artists, and she did a tour with the Bodines, right? And, there was probably some friction there, because they could be a little bit, abrasive. They could back in the day. This goes way back. And she was saying how that when they would go on stage, they would go into their dressing room and drink all the beer, just to piss them off. And so we played at the Barrymore, and she and I opened for the Bodines at the Barrymore, right? and she told me this story. We were driving, so we didn't, we were driving back to Milwaukee, so we didn't steal the beer. But later on, I don't know if it was the following year, very close proximity. I get booked to play with them. That was myself, Billy Porter, and the Bodines at the Pabst Theater on New Year's Eve. And to honor Mary, I went, and the two guys, my buddies, when the Bodines went on stage, we went and drank all of their beer out of, out of the dressing room as an homage to my friend Mary.
Well done. Well done.
Yeah, I mean, we just kind of had to do it. So yeah, there are guys that have become friends of mine that I love. Like I said, Pat McGee, Stephen Kellogg, some great singer songwriters. But I had the occasion to play last year, and last year is my 30th consecutive year playing Summerfest, and I shut it down. I said I'm going to hit 30, and then I'm done. So I won't be playing there this year. So
Great
I
run.
played no, I have, the afternoon slot, I have moved from the 8 p.m. slot all the way back down to, 2:30 in the afternoon, and I'm fine with that. But I wanna go down, and these are my top 5s, and I always do top 5 all-time worldwide, and these are my top 5 favorite bands that I have opened for, and this is direct support, and they're all at Summerfest. And they're not necessarily my favorite bands, but the situations, one of them wasn't Summerfest, but the situations are very cool, or the way that I'm connected to them is very, very cool. So I'll start off, and at number 5 is Kansas. And
Nice.
I played with Kansas, and Steve Walsh was the singer, and I took the gig because when I was in college, I saw them at Alpine Valley on a really rainy night, and Steve Walsh's voice was amazing, right? And he was just a madman on stage. Now, he was much older when we played with him, did not move around as much, but still to hear Carry On Wayward Son by the guys playing it. And Kerry Livgren was not in the band, but all of those, Song for America, Portrait, all of those albums at that time in my life were huge. So number 5 it would be Kansas. Number 4, and you can't help but love this band, right? If you've been to a hockey game or a county fair, REO Speedwagon, man, you can't mess with the wagon, right? I do.
Rock band.
I will send you a link to this. When I was doing the morning radio show, I have a video sitting in the studio with Kevin Cronin and Bruce Hall, and they're doing an acoustic version of Riding the Storm Out. But the reason that I loved playing with them is, um, aside from singing with the polka band in a tent at Oktoberfest, which holds about 20,000, that was the biggest show that I ever played in front of. It was probably 20,000 it was backed all the way up to the lake from one of the ground stages. And Kevin Cronin was really cool. So, and it's the wagon, man. It's REO Speedwagon. They haven't changed their set list in 5 years or 10 years. It's the same thing, but they don't have to. Coming in at number 3, Clarence Clemens and the Red Bank Rockers. Now, being a
All right.
huge Springsteen fan, I got booked with him, and my son was probably in 4th grade at the time, and got booked with him because I wanted to. But somehow with the guy that was booking the stage, I had a connection to his manager anyway. I said, I can get you there, but you got to let me play with him. So we're backstage, and he comes out of the bus, and my son is there. My son had just started playing sax. And
Perfect.
I went and bought a virgin vinyl copy of Born to Run. And I have his signature on the back next to him, when you fold it out. And I said, and this is my son. He just started playing saxophone. And Clarence takes off his strap and gives it to him. And he goes, "You
Wow.
work on those whole notes now, right?" He goes, "Let's
Ah,
get a picture." And he picked him up, and the only camera that someone had there was one of those disposables, and we never got the picture. The picture didn't turn out. But Clarence was
well,
a big one. Number 2 is Heart, and
wow.
played with them at Summerfest. And number 2 is Heart because Nancy Wilson is a freaking smoke show. And this is probably 20 years ago. She was in her 50s probably at the time, and she was backstage, and she had a cocker spaniel with her that was out on tour with her, and she was backstage, and she was just jaw-droppingly beautiful, right? She's one of those people that got better looking as she got older. And Sheryl Crow was playing the amphitheater, and then Sheryl Crow came over, and I'm standing there talking to Sheryl Crow and Nancy Wilson and her dog. So that was really cool. But
Man.
then, yeah, I mean, no, I'm very blessed. And the number 1 band for me, this was the number 1 band, and this started a very long friendship because the guy who runs the Pabst Theater called me up and he said, "Hey, lead singer of this band wants to go play golf. Can you take him out?" And yeah, I took him out. We started playing, and I took him out to play golf, and it started a friendship to this day. The first day we went to play golf, I knew that my niece, who lived in Colorado, was a big friend of the band, right? And I was driving him back down at Summerfest, and I said, "Hey, will you do me a favor? Will you call my niece? She's a huge fan." So he gets on the phone, he talks to her, and he's like, "Hey, I'm here with your uncle, blah blah blah. We had a good time playing golf." And the whole time she was like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah, yeah." Didn't believe it at all. Had no idea. Every time he comes to town, we play golf, and I open for them, and it's OAR.
Wow.
And Mark Roberge has become a pretty good friend of mine. And I really didn't know who they were beforehand, but he's become a pretty good friend of mine. And to play with them was really a thrill because I flew my niece in, knowing I would be backstage with him. I flew my niece in for the show. I said, "You got to
Wow.
come and watch me play at Summerfest." And so we'll go backstage. And she was there and she met him and started bawling and just started
Uh,
crying. He's like, he's not Elvis, he's just a regular guy. But
be her Elvis.
yeah, but one thing that that band is known for is, man, they're a hardworking band. They rehearse a lot. They change the arrangements of their song, but they do some kick-ass covers. And you're talking about an album, how you go from the front side to the back side, and you're driving around from the golf course. And we started talking about songwriting, and he said, "Yeah, I've been listening to a lot of Springsteen lately in the way that he writes songs and the stories and how he tells stories." And I just made an offhand comment, and I don't know if you know this, but it's kind of it's not anything that's really commonly known. But I said, "Yeah, he writes albums as albums." And I said, "Born to Run, for example." I go, "What that is, Born to Run is a collection of 8 songs that happened simultaneously in New Jersey on a Saturday night." And he was like, "What?"
Okay.
I go, "Oh, yeah. When you listen to that album, Born to Run, that's a different guy, who's tramps like us. There's another guy taking Mary off the front porch. There's a guy going to deal drugs and meeting across the river. The Rangers are having a homecoming. It's all happening at once." And when you
Wow.
listen to the album like that, it just blows your mind. Because now you listen to that
That's
album.
cool.
Yeah, you go back and listen to it
And it
because
also just happens to be a bunch of awesome songs too on their
right.
own.
The whole album takes on a life of its own.
Yeah,
And
that's
so I
awesome.
said that to him, and he's like, "Wow, I didn't know that." He goes, "I'm gonna have to go back and listen to that." I get on YouTube probably 3 months later, and there's a video of OAR playing Jersey. And they close the show with Born to Run. And I texted him, I go, "That is the ballsiest thing I've ever seen in my entire life. You go to Jersey and play the national anthem of the guy who lives for," and
Guts.
you went and played a concert and played not one of his songs, the song.
The
He goes,
song.
"Yeah, we like it." Pulled it off.
Nice.
Anyway, Eric, thanks for spending the time. I know I kept you a long
Yeah.
time, but I kept you
No,
away
I
from your
love it.
writing. But
Oh,
I know there's a club in Oconomowoc and a guy who's running it, and I'm thinking we might have to put a Dungarees Mascot Theory show together. Meet halfway in the middle.
absolutely.
Okay, I'll talk to my
Yes,
boy Trevor about it, and I think we can probably do that. It would be a lot of fun. A lot
I
of fun.
agree. Let's
So
do it.
okay, Eric, thank you very much. Of course, on all the streaming platforms, all your albums are there, but the latest one is Cosmic. What is it? A Cosmic Hit and Run.
Hit and run.
And
Oh,
Every
yes.
Sign of Life, all of them really solid. There you go, Cosmic Hit and
Yep.
Run, an album that's written like an album, a very rare thing
Absolutely.
in these days. Eric, thank you very much, and good luck to you. And I will talk to you soon.
Appreciate it, KB.
All
Stay
right.
well.
Thanks a lot. Take care. Erik Kjelland from the Mascot Theory. And if you have a chance, go out and listen to the music. I think you'll be blown away by it. And it's true. I mean, Drew and I were kicking around Summerfest and we just stumbled upon them. And I went, these guys are really good. And they are really good. So if you get a chance, if you're into acoustic driven Americana, big harmony stuff. These are the guys for you. Next week, there won't be a Monday show. So Tuesday will be the next show. And until that time, as I always like to say, make good choices. And that's it for this episode of KB's Unemployed Show. If you want to follow me on my unemployed journey, just subscribe to my channel below or dive into one of the playlists for all my unemployed action.